Welcome to our channel of IGNOU audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Extension and Development Studies, SOEDS, Certificate Programs. Certificate Program in Value Education, CPVE. BEDS-003 Pedagogy of Values. Block-1 Value Development through Curriculum. Unit-1 Value Models. 1 Introduction. There is a growing concern in recent times about teaching values through the institution of school. It is also very well accepted that whatever the teachers do, inside and outside the classroom, their covert and overt behaviors, have a definite impact on the student's mind. This ultimately has a bearing on the quality of education imparted to the students. A large number of research studies in education have supported the idea that the school and its teachers are instrumental in the formation and transformation of values among the students, at every level of 5 School education, Gaikwad 2004. Teachers have to make deliberate efforts to transform the learning of values to value education of the children. This implies that teachers have to adopt certain theories, principles, viewpoints to inculcate values. These strategies adopted by teachers are termed as models of value education. In this unit, the concept and some models of value education are discussed briefly. 11 study of these models will help you to get some insight into the approaches of value development in students. 1.2 Objectives. After going through this unit, you should be able to explain the meaning of values, distinguish between a value and value judgment, analyze the underlying basis of the consideration model, identify and analyze values and value conflicts, distinguish between reasoning and indoctrination for value clarification, identify value indicators through classroom interaction, and illustrate the difference between value criteria and value principle. 1.3 The concept of values. Before we discuss the strategies or models that teachers can adopt for value education, let us understand the term values. Values cannot be defined by one definition alone. Many educationists have attempted to define values. According to Halstead and Taylor, 2000, values are the principles and FBNDA mental convictions which act as general guides to behavior, the standards by which particular actions are judged as good or desirable. Majetrek, 1995, explains in a similar manner that a value is a set of principles which are consistent and inform and direct our thoughts, actions and activities. Ratz et al. 1966, believe that people grow and learn from life's experience, and this learning guides their behaviors. These guides to behaviors have been termed as values. Bhagia, 1986. This matches Hill's, 2004, viewpoint that values are the ideals which give meaning to an individual's life, shape behavior and lend consistency to it. A person's actions are informed by the beliefs, which ultimately help in taking decisions about how they will live. He further argues that it is important to progress from knowing the good to be desirable, to desiring to do the good. Gaikwad, 2004. Gaikwad, 2004, has more explained the relationship between values and actions through Mariani's, 1999, 4-layered pyramid. In the 4-layered structure, the topmost layer is the visible part, which denotes the actions a person takes. These actions are just the tip of the iceberg, which are the result of the invisible factors, i.e., our beliefs, which affect the attitudes to the events around us and the decisions one takes to act, depending on our attitude. T. Majetrek, 1995, explains in a similar manner that a value is a set of principles which are consistent and inform and direct our thoughts, actions and activities. Ratz et al. 1966, believe that people grow and learn from life's experience, and this learning guides their behaviors. These guides to behaviors have been termed as values. Bhagia, 1986. This matches Hill's, 2004, viewpoint that values are the ideals which give meaning to an individual's life, shape behavior and lend consistency to it. A person's actions are informed by the beliefs, which ultimately help in taking decisions about how they will live. He further argues that it is important to progress from knowing The good to be desirable, to desiring to do the good. Gaikwad, 2004. Gaikwad, 2004, has Mayer explained the relationship between values and actions through Mariani's 1999 four-layered pyramid. In the four-layered structure, the topmost layer is the visible part, which denotes the actions a person takes. These actions are just the tip of the iceberg, which are the result of the invisible factors, i.e., our beliefs, which affect the attitudes to the events around us and the decisions one takes to act, depending on our attitude. The common thread which runs through the above explanation is that values have a rational and cognitive basis which shape the behavior of individuals. Hence you will agree that teachers have a crucial role to play, through selected pedagogical practices, planned and unplanned, to inculcate values in the students. What, curriculum, and how, pedagogy, of teaching, are important considerations for inculcation of values in students. The process of identification, integration, and development of values shall be dealt with in subsequent units. Let us examine some models of value education and have some understanding of the 10 values. 1.4 Rationale Building Model. The rationale building model developed by James Shaver, 1976, is also called as jurisprudential model. In this model, Shaver focuses on the definition of values, types of values, how teachers take value or moral decisions in class, and how teachers guide students in developing the ability for critical thinking in dealing with moral issues. Let us first understand the theoretical basis of Shaver's model. 1.4.1 Theoretical basis of rationale building model. Shaver describes values as standards or principles for judging worth. They are the criteria for judging people, ideas, actions, objects, situations, and events. These can be good and desirable or bad and undesirable or somewhere in between. According to Shaver, values have three key attributes. 1. Values can be explained, analyzed and compared with other values. For example, punctuality is a value and not a feeling which can be compared with others. 2. Values are reflected through our decisions and actions and exist in the mind, independent of ourselves or our awareness. For example, you may value cleanliness but not practice it always. 3. Values are not absolute but exist on a continuum with two extremes. For example, a person cannot be honest always or dishonest all the time. A person's behavior may vary across a continuum of which honesty and dishonesty are the two extremes. Distinction between a value and value judgment. Shaver distinguishes between a value and value judgment. He believes that we make a value judgment on the basis of a value. For example, when a parent tells the child to keep the house clean, it is a value judgment, based on the value of cleanliness which emerges from paternal authority. Other criteria for supporting a value judgment can be social order or institutional authority. Value cannot be understood in isolation, as they are part of an entire value system and one value has a bearing on the other. They are to be understood as interlocking parts of a total value network rather than as self-contained units. IGNOU 2005. For example, the values of liberty and equality impinge on each other. The value of liberty allows the individual to exercise self-expression and freedom. The value of equality guarantees the individual same access to public commodities. Now the value of equality can have a limiting effect on the value of liberty. For example, when we say that socially or physically disadvantaged child should be given preferential treatment, it restricts the access of educational opportunities of the normal. Shaver has emphasized the moral value of human dignity. He believes that it is the basic value which sustains a democratic society. Democratic principles are founded on the value of human dignity, i.e., respect of individuals, and their rights to freedom, self-determination, and decision-making. It implies that all human beings are autonomous and have the right for decision-making. Hence a teacher also must inculcate this value among the students by enabling them to think as per their free will and take decisions based on their own logic and rationale. This way a teacher will develop essential democratic values in the students and help them to Achieve the fundamental purpose of education, i.e., the ability to think and act rationally. 1.4.2 Considerations for rationale building. Shaver has suggested some basic considerations for rationale building among students. These considerations are identification and clarification of values, label generalization, value conflict analysis, and qualified decision making. Some of these are briefly discussed below. 1. Identification and clarification of values. We may believe in some values ideally, but we may display some other behavior when it comes to actual practice. It is important, according to Shaver, to know our values, the strength of our belief in those values, exercising them into practice in a holistic manner. For example, ideally we may attach great value to cleanliness, but we may have special consideration in exercising it for our children or loved students. Value identification, according to Shaver, is locating and surfacing value commitment by a process of self-searching. According to Shaver, value clarification means that values have to be examined and practiced. In life, we are confronted with conflicting situations or dilemmas. Hence, we have to take decisions based on rationality. 2. Label generalization. Shaver calls label generalization as putting values in the context of moral norms. For example, an adult tries to silence a child, who then retorts, "I have the right to do what I want." The value invoked by the child is freedom of speech. 3. Value conflict analysis. Very often we are confronted with a dilemma in taking decisions on making judgments. In such a situation, a value conflict arises because two or more values may have competing claims. For example, a conflict may arise when deciding steps to be taken for industrial development and conservation of environmental resources. Teachers should encourage free discussions in the classroom for such situations. Shaver suggests the use of analogies for the inculcation of rational decision making the students to resolve moral dilemmas in classroom situations. 4. Qualified decision making. There cannot be a categorical or final judgment about a conflict situation. Hence, there is need to search for several criteria or principles that distinguish the conflicting situations. According to Shaver, qualified criteria is 1 that takes into account the possible negative consequences of an action to be supported and the circumstances under which one can support a different value. For example, we may cherish the value of freedom of speech, but our decisions should be based on the belief that freedom of speech should be guaranteed under all circumstances except when such speech presents a danger of inducing violence to other. Hence, a qualified stand is taken when one value assumes more relevance than the other. 1.5 Consideration Model. The rationale building model emphasizes the concepts of reasoning, judgment, and rational thinking based on values. It looks at different forms of morality. However, it is important to examine values like honesty, punctuality, cooperation in relation to the others, and the situation in totality in which the act is performed. The consideration model propounded by McPhail takes into account a person's lifestyle when relating to the self and others around. The basis of this model is the belief that living for others is truly the essence of life. Such an attitude will keep the individual away from all negative tendencies like hatred, distrust, egocentrism, selfishness, narcissism, etc. It will cultivate in him, her the desire to work for others and derive a sense of reward that will motivate the individuals to give and receive. Value models. Love, respect and dignity of the self and others. 1.1 Theoretical basis of consideration model. Curriculum. McPhail and his associates, 1975, wrote The Lifeline series, and a Teacher's Guide to Lifeline, entitled Learning to Care. This was based on an intensive study of adolescent students' need. On the basis of this study, a common view of the good and bad values was evolved. The students were asked to cite such incidents when they were treated nicely and those when they were treated badly by adults. They observed that positive incidents showed a consideration for others and was categorized as good treatment. For example, shared responsibility was taken as a good value and domination as a bad one. The findings of the Lifeline Study revealed that a consideration for others' needs, feeling and interests come under the category of good treatment. McPhail's Lifeline study has emphasized that the fundamental human need is to get along with others, to love and to be loved. The findings also brought to focus that most students admired the values of consistent behaviors, i.e., practicing what was preached, and could discriminate between dogma and conviction and firmness and stubbornness. The study concluded that values are learned by observing how others behave with us and also how we relate to others. McPhail considers caring for others as the most important value to be learned, and for this he emphasizes observational learning and social modeling. Let us now understand the consideration model in relation to value development, which is based on McPhail's Lifeline program. 1.5.2 The Lifeline program. The Lifeline program is divided into 3 stages. 1. In other people's shoes. 2. Providing the rule. 3. What would you have done? The learners are presented with increasingly complex situations as they progress from one stage to the next. These stages are described briefly below. 1. In other people's shoes. In the FMT stage, situations are built around common circumstances of home, school, and neighborhood. The area of motivation is identified and then the consideration for others in that context is developed. The students are provided with sensitivity cards depicting a situation and the activities require students to do rather than theorize. For example, one situation given on the card is your mother who is tired and distracted by a younger child is not listening to something important you are trying to tell her. What do you do? 2. Providing the rule. In this stage, the students are provided with more complex situations of conflicts, progressing from interpersonal to group interests and decision making by authorities. McPhail has cited a situation where a student, who is assigned a particular duty, absconds and is caught red-handed. The principal suspends him and informs the parents. Questions based on this situation seek to assess the learner's opinion on the behavior of the person in authority, i.e., the principal, their reaction to the lawbreaker, i.e., student, the severity of the punitive action and how they would have reacted had they been in the position of the principal. What would you have done? McPhail provides examples from other fields like history, social studies, languages, etc. These cases serve as a basis for formal reflection. One of the examples mentioned is Gail in the hospital. The situation describes the teenage girl Gail in hospital suffering from the after effects of drugs. What would you have done had you been intimately associated with Gail? Hence, in the consideration approach to value education, the focus is on a concern for others, and it is explained comprehensively through the Lifeline program, building from simple interactions to complex historical situations. 1.6 Value Clarification Model. The value clarification model is based on a premise which opposes the method of indoctrination as an approach to value education. It has also been discussed earlier that values cannot be considered as fixed entities or universal truths but rather as changing and evolving under different circumstances. Let us examine the underlying assumptions of the value clarification approach which constitute the other end of the continuum of the indoctrination approach. 1.6.1 Assumptions. The basis assumptions are: values are based on certain criteria and are neither right nor wrong. Instead, values are based on personal beliefs and every individual cherishes some V and S. An increasing awareness of the self leads to learning. The present-day society is witness to a breakdown of traditional moral codes, and individuals are compelled to choose from the moral pluralism in today's society. 1.6.2 Key Elements. Curriculum. Students are required to make many value choices and value decisions, considering the democratic setup in which they live. The influence of home, school, peers and society tend to create in them confusion and conflict when they are to make a choice of value or a value judgment. However, students do also imbibe values through the unstated or hidden curriculum, and this leads them into a confixed state while taking value decisions. In response to this confusion of choosing or deciding about a value clarification model was developed by Louis Ratz, Merrill Harmon and Sidney Simon, 1973, IGNOU 2005. The model aims to minimize the confusion and promote value choices through a process called valuing process. The valuing process focuses on the use of reason in determination of values as opposed to the process of indoctrination. This is discussed in section 1.6.3. There are 4 key elements underlying the valuing process. These are explained below as 1. Focus on life. Student-s are required to focus on relevant life issues and understand how their personal choices reflect their hierarchy of values. 2. Accepting what is. Students should be encouraged to accept themselves and the situation around them and be honest with themselves. An invitation to reflect further. Once the student accepts the self and the surrounding situation, they should be encouraged to reflect on the values they have accepted. The teacher can further strengthen the choices made by providing more awareness of what the person cherishes and prizes in their routine activities. 4. Nourishment of personal power. The proponents of this model believe that through the repeated process of value clarification, the individual gains a sense of personal direction of fulfillment. The value clarification theorists have concluded that the value choices made by individuals are reflective of the clarity which they have regarding their relationship with the society and the self. According to this approach, if individuals are clear about the relationship between themselves and the society, then they develop positive values and display consistent behavior. Those who are confused about their position and understanding of self, such individuals show negative attributes like being indifferent, over-conforming, or display inconsistent behavior patterns. The value clarification model is an approach that provides an educational solution to reduce value confusions through the valuing process. We shall briefly explain the nature and context of the valuing process. 1.6.3 The valuing process. Ratz, 1969-78, has provided some criteria that decide whether a belief can be categorized as a value. These criteria are also called as the sub-processes of the valuing process. These criteria can be related to the 3 sub-processes of choosing, prizing, and behaving. The 7 criteria for beliefs to be considered as values are: 1. Should be chosen freely, value models. 2. Chosen from among alternatives. 3. Chosen after thoughtful consideration of consequences. IV. Prized and cherished. 5. Publicly affirmed. 6. Acted upon in reality, and V. Acted upon repeatedly. Criteria I to E can be categorized under the sub-process of choosing, IV, and 5, under prizing, N, V, and V, related to behaving or acting. Hirsch et al. 1980, have attributed 3 types of contents in the valuing process. These are value indicators, goals and aspirations, personal issues, questions pertaining to issues of friendship, love, sexuality, marriage, fidelity, adoption, etc. Social issues, poverty, racism, overpopulation, corruption in public offices, etc. Value clarification is achieved through a classroom interaction, wherein the teacher facilitates the students to utilize the 7 sub-process in their own lives. Special techniques or exercises are designed to help students clarify their values. Hirsch et al. 1980. Ratz, H.N. and Simon have identified 8 value indicators along with typical keywords mentioned with each as example. Their identification, through classroom dialogue, will facilitate clarification of values. A great deal of attention is paid to value development through the educational process. Individuals are encouraged to reflect on their own values. Hayden, 1997. However, the teacher must ensure that the notion of right or wrong is not imposed on the students, and an atmosphere of free exchange of views should prevail. Every individual should feel respected, be allowed to express freely, and also encouraged to listen to others. They should be enabled to take decisions. Their thinking should be stimulated, and the teacher need not respond overtly to every action or overall classroom activities. The value clarification focuses on the ability of individuals to make value judgment in life. It encourages individuals to create their own set of values by choosing pricing and behaving, instead of passively accepting the traditional values and beliefs. However, the criticism of this approach to value education is that it avoids the controversies associated with value conflicts and conflicts resolution. It takes a simplistic view of value issues in human affairs by attributing value development to personal choices and desires. Lockwood, 1976. 1.7 Value Analysis Model. Value analysis approach resembles the rationale building approach, since both focuses on the philosophic underpinnings of value education. Both appreciate centrality of conflict in making decisions about values, and both tend to emphasize the controversial public issues. Hirsch et al., 1980. The major difference in the two models is that the value analysis model emphasizes pedagogy. In this approach, students learn the process of making moral decisions by proceeding in a systematic manner. Let us now understand the concepts which comprise the framework of this model. These are 11.7.1 Value Criteria and Value Principle. Value Analysis Model is authored by James Combe, 197 L. IGNOU 2005, who believes that in value criteria values are ascribed to a given class of conditions. For example, it is wrong to speak lies, kill, or cheat etc. But the same value criterion may not apply in all circumstances. For example, deceiving others may be right when it is a question of saving a life, or when larger interests of a country, like its security, are at stake. Hence, a value criterion may not be equally valid in all the circumstances, all the time. Combe postulates that value criteria give positive or negative valences to facts. He has cited the example of euthanasia, mercy killing. It is accepted that killing wrong. This attaches a negative valence to the fact that euthanasia involves killing. Here a negative evaluation of the act of euthanasia is involved, hence decision becomes difficult. The evaluator need to balance the positive and negative facts before taking decisions. The task becomes difficult when conflicting principles or valences become associated with the object or facts. Combe arrives at a value principle when he cites the example of evaluating the proposition of the U.S. withdrawing from war in Vietnam. A nation ought not to be involved in a civil war to save a country from repressive government if that involvement increases the level of lulling in war and diverts the nation's attention from pressing social problems. Combe, 197 1. 1.7.2 Value Analysis Strategy. Combe has described the value analysis strategy, comprising of the following 6 conflict resolution tasks. 1. Identify JMG and clarify JMG the value question. E. Assembling relevant facts. E. Assessing the truth of relevant, intended, facts. IV. Clarifying the relevance of facts. 5. Arriving at a tentative value decision. 6. Testing the value principle implied in the decision. These sequences are briefly described as follows. 1. Identifying and clarifying the value question. The teachers should state the question in a clear and unambiguous manner. This may then require them to clarify the value question with an example or illustration. 2. Assembling relevant facts. The students should be encouraged to gather relevant facts about the value object to minimize confusion about the distinction between FHCtude and evaluative statements. Factual statements describe the actual condition and evaluative statements rate them. For example, it is a fact that lack of balanced diet causes disease. But the statement becomes evaluative when we say that a balanced diet should be taken to stay healthy. This means that observations cannot verify evaluative statements. 3. Assessing the truth of relevant facts. The value statements can be assessed by asking some of the following questions. 1. How do we know this is true? 2. What is the proof to support the fact? E. Why should we believe the statement? 4. Do others believe the fact? 4. Clarifying the relevance of the facts. The facts gathered should be relevant to the value decision to be taken. Irrelevant facts must be rejected. 5. Arriving at tentative value decision. Based on the rationality of a value principle, the evaluator makes a value decision, but only tentatively. 6. Testing the value principle implied in the decision. Teachers should facilitate and enable the learner to locate the value principle. In the value decisions, identify analogous situations and see if the same value principle holds in such situations as well. Hence, value analysis model provides systematic procedures for differentiating between particular, general and conditional facts, between value criteria and value principles, between relevant and irrelevant evidences and the different situations of acceptance or rejection of value principles. IGNOU, 2005. 1.8 Let US Sum UP. In this unit, the concept of values and 4 models of value education have been discussed. The various definitions of values were discussed to explain the concept of values. How the relationship between beliefs and actions determine the values was explained. The jurisprudential or rationale building model by James Shaver was described as one approach to make value judgments or value decisions. The model has greater focus on the form rather than on the content of morality and highlights importance of reason and judgment in value education. McPhail's consideration model emphasizes a person's lifestyle in relation to self and others. The model highlights the importance of living for others, which will in turn free individuals of negative attributes like narcissism, egocentricity etc. On the other hand, the approach will foster development of values that cultivate positive dispositions of love and consideration, which are desirable behaviors. The techniques of observation and social modeling are basic to this approach. The third model of value clarification is based on the major premise that values are not objective or fixed but are a matter of personal choices, preferences and act accordingly in real-life situations. The valuing process is crucial to the process of value development, which avoids indoctrination. Instead, it promotes the use of rationality or reason in the determination of values by choosing, prizing and behaving. Value analysis is the fourth model, which fosters the ability of rational thinking to arrive at value decisions. It is akin to rationale building model, except that the value analysis focuses on pedagogy, which is a systematic, stepwise process to arrive at value decisions. Thank you. Subscribe to our channel for more updates, and we will see you with the next chapter.